So hello, welcome to the Music City Drive-In. I'm Eric Langford, and I'm here speaking today with David Sullivan and Jason Harner. I got to watch The Big Bend. It's a largely character-driven story, and you all came together in the middle of the desert, and I'm hearing and kind of seeing a lot of chemistry from that set, a lot of positive relationships coming out of that. How was it for you all coming together for this project?
I think it was pretty fun. I mean, listen, I'd never been to that part of the world before, so that was an adventure in and of itself. It's a trek to get there. Like, you're really going to get there. But we lucked out, and David and I especially had a lot of fun together as these two guys. That doesn't always happen, by the way. You can see it, you know. So I'm glad that you noticed it. But we had a lot of fun out there in the desert together with all kinds of adventures and heat and rain and snakes and frogs and tarantulas, scorpions in bed.
Javelinas. Was it a
Yeah,
javelina?
javelinas. Oh,
Remember
I
that?
forgot
Just
about
kind of like
those.
tromped across the trail, and you're like, is that thing gonna attack me?
There was a part also at dusk. For some reason, they're not jackrabbits, but they're a specific kind of rabbit. They would just go out into the dirt road and just stand there, and
Yeah.
and he would be driving down to get back to where we were all staying. We were staying in these cabins that were like one building that had 4 units in it. So Erica and Virginia and Dave and myself each had a corner, so we could really hear each other through the walls at all hours.
Good.
Anyway, so it was a good time.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about the live animals on set, like the toad, the snake. I mean,
No animals were hurt. No animals were hurt in the making of this film.
Sure. What was it like to stick your foot that close to a rattlesnake?
Well, there were 2. Not sorry, everybody. No spoiler alerts here, but there was a live rattlesnake with a rattlesnake handler, and then there was a dead rattlesnake. So,
okay.
So they ultimately used the shot with the live rattlesnake. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. I think going in without spoilers is important for this movie. It is. I mean, I guess the introduction would make it seem like it's a little more lighthearted. But what can you guys tell me? What was the inspiration, maybe for you all, for the way you played the characters or the way you came into the story? I mean, David. I know that they were looking for casting your character for a while before they felt like you were a really good fit. Could you speak a little bit to that? Like, how did you find your way in?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know that information, and you just telling me that is new information to me. And had I known,
David, you were the last choice.
Yeah. Had I known that, I probably would have A, messed it up, and B, once I got it, I would have been like, oh, you just couldn't find anybody else, so you just went with me because I was cool.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you, because I did an interview with Brett. It was really hard to find Mac, and they knew they couldn't find a guy that had the qualities that was a believable person, a Texan, and had a big heart, and yet was funny and emotional range. And then they were so lucky and glad when they found you, and God knows I was so glad too when we got on set and saw what a great actor and what a great guy you were and how fun to hang out with you. And then also, Dave, listen, I know you weren't going to talk about it, but Dave's first film was an indie made with a low budget. And so David's been around for a while, and he knows how to have fun, and he knows how to problem solve on a set at any budget level, which comes in handy when you're working in the middle of the desert with kids and on an indie. So
he's absolutely right.
I'm not going to deviate. I will say, like, I love Primer and Time Crimes and a few different independent budget sort of films along that vein. So I won't dodge that. If anyone watching this is unaware, there are recommendations to watch for both of these excellent actors. You can watch Primer for David, and you can watch Changeling, or you can watch Ozark for Jason, and you can watch The Big Bend for both of them. So I wanted to know what it was like working with the children on this movie.
This is a great question. because I'd never played a dad before. David is the dad, and so he's had some practice. But you know, it's challenging, and these kids were great and fun and up for the challenge of acting. They were great, and some of them really hold the camera. They all hold the camera very well. But you know, it was hot out there, and I had one of them, Delilah, collapsed in my arms from heat exhaustion one time. But my favorite scene, Dave, one of my favorite scenes with the kids, and it's the only scene that we shot twice because of a sound issue that it ended up being a gift, was when we're out there and I'm in the back watching, and he's teaching them about the desert and snakes and cactuses. And especially the young ones had a lot of energy or didn't want to say their lines. So this is where David's expertise came through. Tell me what you remember about that scene, because I love watching you guys do it.
Well, I mean, it was funny because that scene was my audition scene. And so I knew that scene backwards and forwards. And so and that was pretty early on in the shoot. And, you know, I'd gotten to know the kids and the Matthews boys, like they were pros, like they'd done commercials, they'd done some TV stuff, like they'd been, and the girls were obviously the daughters of the writer director, Brett's kids. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to say my little run, and then they're going to say their little thing, and then I'm going to have another little run, and they're going to say their thing. And as soon as we get out there, it's like they're going to say whatever they want, whenever they want to say it. And I'm like, okay, I love this, but like at some point I do have to get out what I need to say, because when the camera's pointing at me, you guys need to be quiet. I know that you guys have lots to say, and I know you have like all this built up energy, but like it's not going to work. And but it was really they're such good kids, and after, you know, kids. And also that was in the pure sun. Like I think I pitched wearing a cowboy hat maybe after I shot that scene once without, and then it was like, well, if you wear a cowboy hat now, you're gonna have to wear a cowboy hat the majority of the time. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. This sun is and it ended up working. Like I had to take it off in the car just because I have a huge head. And otherwise, me with a cowboy hat would just inside any closed space like that, it wouldn't work. But yeah, they're just such good kids. And the interesting thing about that is that's actually taken from a real talk that Aaron gave his kids and Brett's kids. I was fortunate enough that movie played in Austin this past weekend, and I stayed with Aaron. He has a place in Austin, and they started watching the whole movie of their trip to Terlingua, and Aaron actually has that speech. He's like, all right, there's two things you got to look out for. He talks a little bit slower than me, and he's a little bit more generous with him. But like, I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of my speech. Like there were certain things that he talked about, the snakes and the cacti. And I'm like, all right, this feels pretty good. I feel like I was pretty close to what he did here. So it's really cool to watch like home videos of it, and like her saying there was a short cut and a long cut, and I'm taking the medium cut, and like that was part of the video. Like the whole test 1, 2, I'm on channel 2. What channel? That was all a lot of the dialogue. Yeah, is straight from the home videos.
David's in the cabin in the woods, by the way, just so you know.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to a cabin in the woods this week.
I'm actually in a Mexican restaurant.
Oh, you're at
a restaurant.
Oh, I thought you were in the cabin. Wow.
I pulled over.
The restaurant has better Wi-Fi than we did at the Bad Rabbit Cafe or whatever it was called in Terlingua.
Right. That's exactly right. Yep. But this is what I liked about it, because we were on the border. We were on the border of Mexico while we were shooting, so it kind of has the same type of vibe.
Oh, nice, good. So you're in the same headspace. That's good, because that's right. I have a big question that I wanted to ask, especially if I was going to interview any of the actors from this. A lot of times in movies, the desert feels equated with possibility or impossibility. Mm. It's either people wandering through the desert in desperation, like they're at death's door, or it's people who are driving off into like a future of endless possibility. And I wonder, like there are seeds of that, without trying to give any spoilers away, of death and life in this movie. And I wonder if that setting sort of helps drive the story for you, if that was a part of how you played things. Like, what influence does that setting have for you?
That is awesome. I'll say, obviously for my character, so Corey, listen, my character is dealing with some life or death situations, and only his wife knows about it. That's just one of the things that's going on in the movie. So to be in a place like that, a landscape which is so beautiful, but where you can absolutely die or get lost, or whether you are stung by that rattlesnake or the scorpion or just the heat or whatever, there is something that's inherently poetic and real, which is why I think Brett wrote it that way. But I know Dave feels the same way. That the other thing is the way that a DP captures something as vast and as beautiful, but also overwhelming as that actual landscape. It's funny how you can't just put a camera on it. You need somebody who can capture it in a certain way, which our DP Paul Atkins did. I was blown away about feeling the desert and understanding that and feeling the complexity that you just mentioned in some of the shots. Not only how far it is, not only how remote, like a lot of times you're right. It's to show how remote, how desolate, especially in the future, is at the end of the world, or possibility of somebody who's saying, hey, screw you, I'm going out, or that they're going to die. This one, I think he caught, sometimes it changes too, where it's something beautiful, full of possibility, and then it immediately goes to something that's really dangerous and unpredictable.
Yeah, and that too is a big reason why Jason and I both wanted to do the movie, because we were shooting in a place that we didn't know anything about. I mean, I looked it up online and I'm like, wait, this is how far from, I'm flying into El Paso and then I have to drive another 4 hours? Wait, where are we? Like, I know where Big Bend National Park is, but like, huh? And when we got there, I mean, we really are isolated. Like, we're in the middle of this gigantic, massive mountainous desert, this national park. I mean, I was
really small.
Really small crew, yeah.
But spread out. Like, that's the part that's a little hard to understand, which is, so it is so spread out. And for people who've never even been to that kind of terrain, where there is no Wi-Fi, of course, there's no cell service. So, and we all depend on those things. And especially on an independent film set, you depend on communication. So it's very hard. And then everybody was living remotely. We were in an area that was like this kind of hotel motel thing that had these little cabins. That's where the kids were, that's where the actors were, some of the crew members, but most of the other people, like the house that is our house, which is our producer Aaron's house, where the whole thing actually began, was also where 4 crew members lived nightly. So they were living there. They'd have to get up, make the beds, return them to our set, and then it's 120 degrees outside, go someplace else outside while we shot the film inside. And then going back to the first thing, adding kids in who, they can't go outside because they're going to get too hot. It was like a real, I don't want to romanticize it in any way. I can laugh about it and be really grateful that we made it through and we had fun doing it, which speaks to the film and Brett and everybody and us, to be honest. Like, sometimes you can go on a set like this on an independent film level, and somebody says they're game for that and they're just not, but we really lucked out that we all were game for shooting this movie.
Yeah.
What would the both of you, prefer that audiences know, or maybe have thought about anything that they could do to prep themselves going into this movie?
I would say, I don't want them, I just want, what I would say is, it's not a movie that you'd expect.
And I think there's a lot about this movie that, when you watch the trailer and then you even read about, what the movie's about, and, the producer's direct bio. So like, that's even what they want the audience to think it's about. But people think, but never really say to their close friends. Like, both Corey, both Jason's character and Matt and my character, they're going through kind of a crisis in their lives at this point. And Matt's not really willing to deal with it, and Corey's not really willing to share it. So I think it's just a very human drama that kind of turns into a cool thriller that really has a lot of heart that you don't really expect be there in the movie, and it kind of starts hitting you towards the end of the movie. You're like, oh my gosh, I really care about these families. Whereas at the beginning, it's just like you're slowly getting to know them, and it's like, okay, well, this guy has some problems, and he's not really being forthcoming about them. And then, this guy, he's had some problems, but he's not really willing to see them. He's wanting to just kind of plow through and move on to the next thing. But then, as they really start to bond as a family and deal with these crises, together, you really start to pull for them. And it really surprised me because I just saw it for the first time when it aired in Austin. I was like, damn it, that's a really good movie. Because I started watching a little bit on my phone because I was sent a link and I just couldn't get the scope of the film. And then I'm glad that I stopped. And then I watched it. I watched it on the big screen, and I was just like, I texted Jason and Virginia and Erica, and I was like, guys, I'm so proud of us. Because when we were there, sometimes you don't know if you're making a good movie. Or at least for me, like, I kind of know if I'm doing a good job or if I'm in the pocket. But I'm not there every day, and like I don't know how they're shooting certain things, and so I thought,
any movie, anything can shit the bed at any point along the way with the best of intentions or not. I would say definitely going in, try to watch the film, genuinely try to watch the film on as big of a screen as you can, because the landscape is so beautiful. If you have to watch it on your phone, you have to watch it on your phone, but it's a disservice and you're going to miss some of the nuance. And then the other thing I would say is, truly, I'm not doing an upsell here. It's a different kind of movie at a different kind of pace than you're going to think. And just dare yourself to give over to that. And it's going to surprise you with the family stories that are happening, a slight surrealist element. And it's just the part that I really am compelled to because of Brett is there's just a lot of humanity. We've all come on a really hard year. So I think we're looking for moments or opportunities of reflection about the challenges of living that aren't going to weigh you down to a degree that it's going to be a depressing movie, but are going to offer you some hope that, oh yeah, every family is struggling with something. And then there's this other sort of zany element that happens with Delilah, with the daughter.
Thank you so much. That answers like 3 of my questions in a row, like how it feels as just an actor versus seeing the final product and so many other things. So I'm gonna ask you on the flip side of this, what do you hope audiences get out of the movie? I mean, it's kind of everyone's view of a movie is subjective, but what are you sort of hoping people walk away with?
I mean, I guess I hope that people are reminded that you never know what somebody else is going through, and to try to lean into being compassionate for that, and also with yourself, actually, right? I mean, like right now, right now in my own life, I got an in-laws partner who's in hospice. I got somebody's big birthday coming up. I'm juggling all of these things, and then I got a friend's dog who's sick. Somebody else is going through a divorce. Like, there's just things that you're like, life is happening. So my hope is to be a little bit compassionate, and also trust that solutions and hope comes in unpredictable ways.
Yeah, I'm on the same page there. Like, you don't really know what anybody's going through, and I mean, I think maybe in the first 5 minutes of the movie, we know what Corey's going through, and he just, he has no idea. And on the flip side, Mac, he just wears his heart on his sleeve and he just talks about everything. But yeah, we have these challenges in life that, life just kind of throws these curveballs to us. And if you're fortunate enough to have people close to you, like, talk to people about it, share the good times and the bad. And when somebody does share something like that with you, like Jason said, be compassionate and be open and allow yourself to kind of show up as a friend.
It's funny because both of these marriages that have these challenges that are going, in the case of Mac and Georgia, like, it's a very real thing where a guy is trying to provide for his family in a big way, and innocently has not been present in certain ways to a degree that he doesn't realize, that we hear early on from Georgia, that from his wife, that she's frustrated and she loves this guy and has her own challenges going on. It's not as easy as things as like an infidelity or a murder or something like that. It's more just, boy, living is hard. Living is hard. And here are people doing the best that they can to try to be good people, and they're humanly failing.
I can see a lot of people walking away from this feeling primed to, no pun intended, reveal things about themselves, wanting to talk about things that people don't normally want to talk about, just for the sort of openness that kind of came for me from watching the movie. A little bit of an off the wall question. Are either of you as interested as I would be in getting like a road movie of Fiona the daughter and Carl as like bandits just on the run from the law?
I mean, that
Absolutely.
would be, yeah, come on. Like, I don't want to see a Firestarter reboot, but I do want to see Fiona with or Delilah with her hair in the wind, and Nick coming up behind with his hair in the wind.
Yeah. I was reminded of Leon the Professional a little bit towards the end, and like, not to be probably a little bit narcissistic, but when I read the film and I'm concentrating on my character, I didn't so much concentrate on their relationship. I was just like, oh, she's in danger, and he kind of, in a weird way, they form this weird connection. But I didn't know how powerful that was going to be on screen until I saw it, and I was like, oh my gosh. And also, I don't wait. When people see this, will they have seen the movie or not? Would I be giving a spoiler away?
They
can cut it out if they have it.
No, I won't. There's just a moment that happens at the very end that you do not see coming, and it wasn't even scripted. And then it happened.
No, that happened on the day.
And then I saw it, and I was like, wait, what? Oh,
yeah.
Am I thinking of the correct moment? Like a camera's out the window, and okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that is amazing. Talk about like instinct. Then, if that's not scripted, that's wow. So do we know when and where audiences can see the movie? I know it's getting a theatrical release, and I know that's an important part of seeing the movie.
It's this weekend, actually. It's going to Hawaii. It's in the Hawaiian Film Festival. First screening. It's sold out in an hour, so they added a third screening there. The first screening is November 6th. I forget at what time.
Okay.
And then so there's 3 screenings at the Hawaiian Film Festival.
I think audiences, we'll make sure you get the link, but I think audiences can set up their own screening for their computer or whatever. I think that starts on
the 10th. I think it's like $12
to like the 18th.
You can buy. It's waiting to be how the release happens, the formal release, but this weekend, like November 6th to the 10th or something like that, through the Hawaiian Film Festival site, you can watch it virtually within like a 4-day thing for like $12.
Yep.
Wow.
And host your own screening. You have to build an audience. And it's been kind of tricky in the pandemic to build an audience because there haven't been people going to movie theaters. And so we've kind of come out at a time where people really want to get back in the theater and people really want to see good movies. So I think we're hitting it just right.
If I can absolutely piggyback on something that Dave said, which is, there's so much content out there, and but everyone's interested in genuinely interesting stories and story making. And clearly people who watch this podcast do. So this is one of those movies that isn't made with a huge budget, and it's in a beautiful place that you probably have never been and you may consider going to now. And then the writing and the performances and the story is something different than you're going to see. And if that's what interests you, and in a surprising tempo with twists that you do not see coming, this is definitely a movie that's worth your time for sure.
I love that term, story making. That
I said it right. I said it. That was me that said it, right?
Yeah, you said it.
Of course.
Yes.
That I feel like that is a an important term. Let it be known that it was coined here in the future when people are making movies on their phones, sharing movies with different budget equipment and film and all these different mediums. That's really the core of what it's about, is sharing stories. I like that. Anything else that audiences should know about the movie, or that you want to make sure people know that we didn't already talk about?
Yeah, Jason's naked in the movie, and
That's right.
Not new.
yeah. So this
Snakes and cactuses.
Yeah, that's right. Snakes and cactuses. Cacti.
And then either one of you, if you could have like just blanket control, like magic question, like you could just wake up tomorrow and start working on the project of your choice, what would it be?
I want to work. I'm dying to do a comedy. I want to do something really funny. I've done a lot of work on stage in comedies, but I'm dying, and I want to do something that's funny, but with a human element as well. So I have some friends in mind, and if it had a period element, I think it'd be really funny. Like
I would love to do an action comedy, and it would be awesome to do it with Jason.
That would be fun.
He can be so serious and all of a sudden be so funny on the drop of a hat, like on a dime. It's like, that's what comedy is. Like those sharp turns, those right angles, and like Jason would be perfect for that.
That would be really
action
fun.
comedy with him.
That would be really fun, Dave.
Yeah. Put it out there. Put it in the universe.
Take it.
Well, thank you both so much for your time. I hope you all have a great rest of your press tour. Everybody, please see The Big Bend.
Aloha. See you all in Honolulu.